Obviously, you were also at open practice on Saturday, and
Sure was.
and you've been at all the other availability and open practices as well.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, you got to see the most on Saturday, but I'm curious about, you can only pick up so much from, the 20 minutes
Hmm.
here and there that let you see, or from a single open practice, especially when you're not privy to what exactly they're trying to accomplish, right? But
Yeah.
there's I'm curious what you think about the like temperament of the team. Like the open
Mm.
practice Saturday was, and Coach Rhule sort of addressed this a little bit. It was a very different vibe than it was last year. It felt more like a showcase last year, more fan
Hmm.
oriented. They really barely even addressed the crowd this year. Coach Rhule didn't at all. He wasn't wearing a mic like he was last year. So it was a
Hmm.
very different vibe. But I'm wondering if you've noticed that kind of throughout the fall compared to last year, or if
Yeah.
that was kind of a one off on Saturday.
No, it's actually funny you say that because Rule did kind of share that in the press conference he did before the practice. And he said, last year it was just more of like a show and a little bit more of us addressing the crowd and getting people engaged. And he was like, this year's team is so much more business oriented that this is our first practice in pads. Like we're going to go to work and they're really excited about it. So it's interesting that you brought that up because it's something that he even mentioned as well. But it's also funny you say that because in the first few press conferences that we've heard just a variety of players. Majority of them are guys that, have been what you would call veterans now, if you consider, Jakori Barney in that class, veterans, just guys that have been here before. There seems to be much more of a calm nature to them during this camp. And I don't know if it's because they're just more comfortable with what a preseason looks like with Coach Rhule and this staff, but they're all speaking the same language. Even the guys that are new. I mean, Rocco Spindler literally sounds like he's been a part of a Rhule coach team for multiple years, the way he speaks. And so there seems to be a better understanding, I think, of exactly the process that the team understands the coaching staff has. And I don't even think it's the coaching staff process anymore. I think it's just this program's process. And I think they saw signs of how it worked last year in small moments. And I think, as you can, I mean, you've heard Coach Rhule say, like, this is the team I've been waiting for in terms of their competitiveness and just their drive to want to get better and accomplish the things they think they can this year. So I think there's just more of a I don't know, a calm nature from the team. Just hearing from Emmett Johnson and even Jakori, it doesn't feel like, oh, okay, camp's coming at us at 100 miles an hour. There just seems to be this is kind of what we do vibe versus what I would say kind of what you were describing last year.
Avery, on kind of on that same note, are are you picking up on different just I guess in practice tendencies or maybe just how the team has gelled or vibes differently from a year ago outside of maybe just how you hear them talk from the media? Like is there just a different type
Mm-hmm.
of nature from maybe a younger squad comparative to last year when you were hearing from
Yeah.
Isaac Gifford and Ty Robinson and those guys?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I think it started before this fall camp even because about 2 weekends ago, whenever that weekend was before Big Ten Media Days, they had back-to-back days where you had Dylan Raiola's camp and the next day was the road race. And I don't know how much, Austin, you observed on that road race day, but starting on that Saturday at Dylan's camp, I mean, that was a big deal for how many kids came out and showed up for Dylan. I mean, it's Dylan's name on the camp, not Nebraska football. And to see how many guys came and supported him, I thought that was really special. And that kind of gave me a clue for what we're kind of seeing right now in camp. It was the entire offensive line. It was majority of the wide receivers or a good handful of them. And it wasn't like they were just there for a brief moment, kind of show their face. And they were really interacting with the kids. And when they got there and saw Dylan, I mean, Dylan was running up to Dane Key. He was running up to Jakori and his linemen. Like they were giving, they would have thought they hadn't seen each other in months. Like they were so excited to see each other. Just getting involved in the drills when there was like station rotations and stuff. Like his linemen were in there hanging out with the kids before they got to see Dylan. Just they were wearing shirts with Dylan's face on it. Like there's just something different about the way they were all connecting. And it's not just the guys in Dylan's class even. I mean, this is Dane Key who's showing up in a retro 15 jersey and and just the linemen were all wearing Dylan's face. Like, you want to know like the connectivity of this group that has to play together here in a few weeks. Like, that was a telling sign right there. And talking to Jakori and Emmett, why was it important for you guys to be here? Like, you have a few days off before it all gets going, and they're just like, why would we not? Like, if we had this, he'd be here for us. And so I think there's this shared respect that the offense has for each other. I think that does transcend on the defense. But like I said, Austin, you saw them on the road race day too. Like some of the guys that spoke, just watching the way that young guys interacted with the kids at camp, it just a different feel. And I think you're seeing that now, even at practice too. And something I remember hearing them say last year is they want their players to, really get on one another, hold each other accountable. Like that was the thing that was being said from the Ty Robinsons and Isaac Gifford is we're really working on accountability. And I think we've heard from the very beginning that Coach Rhule at Big Ten Media Days was like accountability from the top down. Like we're already accepting that. And so I think that's gone to players too, because on day one of camp, when we got to watch, there was players coaching players. Like that was something they were trying to encourage last season. And I mean, our first 15 minutes of drills, I mean, I can hear Teddy telling guys what to do. I'm watching Dylan point at guys and show people things. And it was really kind of all over the field. So I think they've really taken a step forward in that regard in terms of the connection they have off the field, the connection they have on the field is really proving itself in the way that they trust each other and they're able to coach each other and hold each other accountable versus that being something they have to work on during this fall camp.
So, Avery, you brought up Jakori a couple times. You brought up the road race. And, when you and I were talking yesterday, we talked about kind of how active he was during the special teams period, not catching punts or anything, but while the kickers were actually going. And I'm just curious to you. I'm obviously a huge fan of Jakori Barney. I've said multiple times, I think he's the toughest guy on the team. I don't just mean physically, although that also. Have you noticed a change in him from year one to year two? Because Austin told a story about him talking and giving a speech at the Team Jack Road Race a couple weeks ago that didn't seem like something he would have done last year.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I also told you this yesterday. I can't tell you how much we saw him out and about last year just because, freshman season, they're not around us as much. But I had watched him at Dylan's camp and the way he was interacting with the kids and all those kind of things. And I was like, oh, it's so cool to see these players in that kind of element, especially when we don't see Jakori on this level a lot. And then just to go to the road race a day later and, it was all older guys that spoke and he was the one young guy and he led things off. And I thought the message that he had, I mean, it was incredibly mature. It was very authentic. It was really genuine. I think I don't know, Austin, how you felt listening to it, but I was like, wow, we see this competitive side of Jakori, but like this is a grown-up version of him that I don't know we would have expected last year because we weren't around him a whole lot, but I don't know if we would know this side of him because the side of that we do see is, the guy that gets hit at 100 miles an hour and pops right back up, right? So to see a different side of him, like I think we saw maybe how he shows up for that wide receiver room and just kind of we've heard Coach Rhule say just the kind of guys he has on this team. But I'm really excited about him. And I think the way we've heard him speak, yes, it's very confident, but I truly don't think he just says those things to say them. I think he truly believes how he speaks. And talking to Deshaun Singleton, when I asked him at Big Ten Media Days, like, why does this team think like they can go win a national championship? And he was like, because why would we not? Like, if you don't step on the field with confidence, then why do we even go out there? And I kind of think that's the energy that Jakori embodies too. And I mean, we've heard Coach Rhule talk about him and we've talked about what he does these special teams period, but this is the first time that we saw him on Saturday truly do what Coach Rhule talks about. And I don't know, Ravi, how you reacted, but the minute they blew that whistle and over the systems or whatever said it's special teams, he left the wide receiver DB drill that they did, like more excited, I think, to go cheer on the special teams, like ran down the field. And everyone on the team just accepted that this is what Jakori does. And like, I don't know how well you could hear him, Ravi, but he was like, they didn't come to pay for whatever. They came to watch greatness. Like, we're going to be the best special team in the country. And like, was going crazy. And like, everyone genuinely just like, that's what Jakori does. Like, there was no, like, what is he doing? Like, this is something that, yes, there was fans in the stands, but like, this is something he consistently does. And I don't know, maybe paying off because special teams was what? Perfect. They're on Saturday. So maybe there's some effect.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There's just something about the energy that he brings and the confidence he brings. He is so competitive, but to see the other side of him, like you guys mentioned at the start of this conversation, was really cool, because I think we got to see a side of him that these are the kind of leaders that are stepping up on this team.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because I didn't see him move over from the drills over to special teams until he was like jumping around and things like that. And, I'm a little skeptical, I think is the nice way to put it, about sometimes I think people, whether people are doing it for show or things like that, but kind of the way his teammates were reacting to him kind of led me to believe what you were saying, that this is just what he does, whether there's people in the stands or not. And I couldn't hear all of it. I did just keep hearing, we're going to be the best special teams in the nation. We're going to be the best special teams in the nation. And that was like, I think there's something really interesting there about guys that, and this is what Coach Rhule's talked about a little bit too, right? About guys that believe in this place as much as he does. And Jakori definitely seems to be one of those guys. And I kind of want to ask you about, this is sort of tangentially related here. So in the press conference before practice, and I think this has to do with guys like Jakori, is he mentioned something that really caught my attention while he's describing the transfer portal guys and who he decided to bring in, and kind of, I think it was specifically about Elijah and Rocco that somebody asked the question, but he said this, and this is as close to an exact quote as I can get here. I don't want anyone in here who complains about eating at the training table. I don't want anybody in here that complains about practice. I already fixed that problem. And I was just curious how that struck you, because like tonally, it does seem like there's way more Jakori Barneys here than there were last year.
Yeah. I think for certain, Coach Rhule never says something without some sort of message, right? So whether that was for people to hear on the team currently, like, hey, this is how we operate, and if you thought for a second I wasn't going to like let down on this message, like, you're wrong. Or maybe people that have passed on and they catch wind of this, I don't know either. But Coach Rhule has made it very clear, even last year, he was like, if you can't look around at what we have here, in his words, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, look, right? And like, we have the facilities to help you. We have X, Y, and Z, you name it, it's here. And if you can't be appreciative of that, then I don't care how good you are, is essentially how he said it. I think it was either after the bowl game or before the bowl game. And once again, don't know if that was a direct hit at someone or something, but he's not going to compromise, I think, the culture that they are looking to have here for maybe a really, really talented player that can't get on board with what they're doing. And I think that's part of being a part of this team, is you got to get on board with how we do things here, or it's not going to work out for you. So I think that's half of it. And so when he says that, I'm not surprised. But it was interesting to hear him say, I handled that, or we got rid of that problem, which, starts making your brain and the wheels start running a little bit like, what is, who, what? But yeah, I thought it was interesting that he did bring that up right beforehand. But and then on the other side, a good sign though, that the guys that they did bring in, they aren't having that issue. And the guys that they did bring in transfer wise, I mean, you heard the way he talked about a majority of them in that pre-practice press conference, like, they're really pleased with what these guys are doing. And even if they aren't on the level that they want them to be, on the field, it's not like they're having issues off the field or getting acclimated to what they do here. But it was interesting to hear him say that. It does get the wheels turning a little bit.
Avery, when it comes to your interactions that you've had with Dylan, whether they're just, from the College World Series before and spring practices to where he was with Big Ten Media Days, how you see him interact with the team during practices and such, where has his leadership changed? Because I was having this conversation with Rico yesterday in the office, and we were talking about how he's a little bit different in that sense where it feels like he's always exuding confidence, but he's not one to just come out directly and be cocky and just say it himself. But he's always been that confident character. Do you still get that same sense from him, or how has he changed from where he was when you talked to him last year leading into bowl practices to where he is now heading into his sophomore year?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think he does have like a subtle confidence when he's around, watching him at practice and things. Yes, I think he knows very well like the position and the responsibility that he holds. I would say the biggest area of growth is just watching the way he's handled, honestly, the media. And then not that he was ever bad at it. I think there's just more of a comfort level, and he understands what, he learned in year one. And I think we heard that a lot from Coach Rhule at Big Ten Media Days. Like, that was a conversation that came up a lot. Just, Dylan knew essentially this was coming when I recruited him. I told him, like, this is not going to be easy. And the fact that he accepted that and wanted that challenge. But I think he might have accepted that being like, okay, this might be hard. But I think last year taught him a lot of things. And Coach Rhule even talks about that a lot. Just he's learning how to accept those difficult moments better. And he said it point blank, like, when you're a 5-star kid and you've been good at basically everything your entire life, like, you probably haven't been challenged a whole lot athletically. And so last year might have been the first time for him where on the biggest stage he was having to learn another side of his game, and that wasn't even maybe on the field, just more or less, how do I lead and get respect from my teammates when things aren't always going great. And I think that those challenges last year really do set him up to be even more successful this season, because they have higher goals than they did last year. But we know no matter what, it's not going to be a perfect season. But Dylan had to go through some things as a really young player last year to show up as a better leader this season. I think that puts the offense in a good spot. I think that puts this team in a good spot, that you have a young player who knows what it's like to go through some difficult stuff. But I think the way that he just moves about the team, moves about, his business off the field, like, everyone knows Dylan is always working no matter what. He doesn't have to tell you that. And I think we've heard that from the coaches. He's the first one in there. He was really committed to making sure that he was in the best shape. I mean, and he took kind of some, I don't know, it was weird to have the public constantly talking about that, but he really owned that. And he wanted to be in the best position possible to lead this team. And I think he's just done everything from what we're hearing from the coaches, like he possibly can, to put himself in that position. I think if he's not speaking, his actions are a lot of the leadership too. But when you watch him at practice, it's not, he's not yelling the entire time. It's not obnoxious. It really is just small little things. Like, when it wasn't his turn on live reps the other day, like, he is pointing, he's before the play, he's speaking. I don't know if I'm on the other side of the field, so I can't exactly tell you, but if it was for the entire offense, if he was reiterating something, or if he's pointing to something for, just the other quarterbacks, but he's constantly talking, or he's walking over to, Holgerson, or he's walking over to Coach Shorts, or even talking to Coach Butler. And he talked about that at Big Ten Media Days. He's like, why would I not use him? Like, he's been an NFL defensive coordinator. Like, I want to pick his brain as much as I possibly can, because I want to understand if I'm reading things correctly. So he's constantly learning. He's constantly using the guys around him. But I would say he definitely does have a more of a comfort level, just the way he moves and operates. And I think that just comes naturally with having, an entire year essentially under your belt.
Avery, I'll get you out here on this. You mentioned some of the coaches there and guys in new spots like John Butler. Obviously, there was a lot of turnover on the coaching staff as well on both sides of the ball, but especially on defense. I'm curious, have you had an opportunity when you've been down there and kind of been at open practices to see not only how the coaching staff interacts with their players and maybe the differences in how they interact from last year to this year, but also how they sort of interact together as a staff?
Yeah. So we've had the first open practice was that first day of fall camp. And then obviously we had Saturday, and the few times that I was observing, or where I was able to stand, essentially I was close to Coach Snow and then Coach Braden. And so those have been the two that I've really been able to listen to, like actually listen to, not just watch. And I will tell you for certain, Coach Snow is no longer an observer. And that probably could have changed, in the middle of the spring, but we didn't really see that a whole lot. I know for a while he was trying to get a feel for things and understand how they do things here. He is full-fledged coaching, intense, and really enjoyed listening to him coach on Saturday. He is very, very clear about what he's looking for, very instructive, and he holds them at a very high standard. But there's tons of positive just reinforcements. I mean, if they don't step the right way, he's going to let them know, but he's never getting on them without telling them how to do it better or for what reason. Like, there was always reason when he was coaching. And so, like, there was a moment where he wasn't pleased with the drill on Saturday, and he got after them pretty good. But the next rep, the guy that got up, I think it might have been Sierre, did a really great job, and he used him as an example. And then the rest of the guys after, it was just noticeable that they were able to grasp what was going on. I know those things like simple things, but it's just like the clear and instructive coaching that these guys are understanding why they're doing things. And I would say that goes the same for Coach Braden. I mean, he comes with a ton of energy, and that's been the highlight. But like he is telling these guys every rep, either whether they did it really well and why they did it well. And I think that's a big thing too. Just understanding why you did that rep correctly so they know how to mimic that or for what reason. And if not, it's not like a berating of what the F are you doing? It's literally, we need to do this better because, or if you don't do this, it puts this guy in this kind of position. And that's the kind of coaching that I'm hearing from those two, which probably means it's across a lot of the field as well. But I just hearing those things is, and maybe it's coming from a former athlete, but I love to know why we do things. Why am I doing this on the field? And I can understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, or technique wise or fundamental wise, why it's 10 times more important if I understand how it's going to help set up the next person. And so for these guys, whether they're freshmen, young, or new to the program, being able to have a coach that has a ton of experience in both of those guys, and in all over the field, but a coach Braden and a coach Snow who have just years of experience, or the guys that they have coached, knowing why I'm doing this and being like, hey, the guys at the highest level are being coached this way. I find that really fascinating. I mean, I'm learning stuff as I'm sitting there. And so I can just only imagine what it's like to be in a room with them all the time. But if those are the way those two are coaching, I mean, I can imagine what it's like across the board. And I know Coach Rhule holds his coaches to a high standard, and coaches even said this, like, I don't really know if I have a job right now. Like, everyone's doing my job for me, because when I walk around, like, everyone's doing a great job, or when I walk through the offices, everyone's on top of it. So it's interesting to watch these coaches coach, and I'm excited to hopefully get a few more practices to go and pay attention to some of the other coaches and just the groups and see how they interact. But I mean, from what I can gather so far from the press conferences too, I mean, a lot of the guys enjoy being coached by these guys. I mean, obviously we've heard the reception from Coach Braden, just how much energy he brings. And I know some of the guys talked about Coach Snow already too, just having a wealth of knowledge. But I mean, when you look at this coaching staff and what they did in the offseason, the guys they brought in, just it really is just experience and knowledge kind of all over the staff.
That is Avarie Howard, our friend, our colleague, and somebody that we will text to see if they're at the place that we are to make sure she doesn't end up sitting alone. Avarie, we appreciate the time as always. I'm sure we'll talk to you a bunch more during football season.
Thanks, guys.